Welcome to the Course One podcast. In this podcast, we explore the emerging open financial system. We dive into scalability, interoperability, proof-of-stake, blockchains, and many other parts of this coming financial singularity. Tune in every Monday to dive deep into these cutting-edge projects and protocols with Course One team members and guests.
Hi, and welcome to the Chorus One podcast. Today with a special episode that is less technical than other episodes. And we're here with Gavin Birch from Figment. And we're going to talk about Cosmos Governance Working Group proposal. Hi, Gavin, and welcome.
Hi, thanks, Felix.
Cool. So yeah, let's get straight into it. How did you start out getting so interested in governance? Can you talk a bit about kind of the background, what led you to crypto, how you started with Figment, and how you got so involved in the whole governance process?
Sure, there's a lot to unpack there, so I'll try to keep it brief. I got into crypto probably in like 2015, and I just happened upon a YouTube video of Vitalik talking about Ethereum, and I had no idea what he was talking about, and I sent it around to various friends who also had no idea. Even though they had a computer science background. So anyway, I kind of had a small obsession with trying to figure it out. And then I became really, I guess, a lurker in the Ethereum community. And I stayed that way for a long time. I got a little bit involved in Cosmos as well, just as a lurker. And anyway, I published an article about a year ago. And I tagged you, I think I may have tagged you, Felix. I don't know who. I think someone else from Chorus One.
Yeah.
And then you guys retweeted it out, and then Figment Networks contacted me. I guess they liked that article and wanted to hire me, which was novel for me because I wasn't looking for a job.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure if I would take it. I didn't know who these people were, and so I said I would work part-time for them a little bit, just on like here and there. But actually they said that they were very family oriented, and I thought, well, I don't know if that's true. But actually one of the first calls that I had with Andrew, he missed the call because he had fallen asleep with his son, and he told me that, and I thought, oh, these guys are for real. And there were a few other indicators that these people were very conscientious of people who had families, and I have a new family. So that was really important to me. So, and it's been like that since. They've been accommodating and flexible. And so it's been great to be able to work in an aggressive startup that's also really great with families. So that's how I got involved with Figment. And
yeah, that sounds like a great company culture, honestly. I'm glad.
Yeah, we just got back from a company retreat that was really lovely. Oh yeah, and with governance has been kind of, I've been following conversations, Vlad Zamfir has been talking a lot about governance historically. I think he's still talking about presently. It's just, the conversation's just a little harder to follow for me. Just the debate about whether on-chain governance is safe or not. In crypto, I'm interested in how it plays out. In the Cosmos Hub, I think that there's a bit of a weakness. And so what I'm hoping to do is try to my thinking is that it will be a problem, that it could be the Achilles heel, so to speak, of the Cosmos Hub. Mm. And so what I'm hoping to do is I'm hoping to see if I can do work that makes that less likely. I'm interested in governance and in crypto, but I'm also interested in how that transposes to the human side, like the human space side of things, from a low level of how people make decisions in families to a high level of how we coordinate and make decisions and execute decisions as a society. And so from what I can see, most of the people involved in crypto have a certain luxury, that the money that the funds that they've used to acquire cryptocurrency is funds that they're not depending upon for their livelihood or for their families, or at least maybe that's a false assumption, but that's sort of an assumption I have. And so the experiments that we have in governance are ideal in that everybody's invested, but nobody is as vulnerable as people who are in the human space side of governance. And so it's harder, I think it may be harder to have similar experiments in the human space because it puts the most vulnerable people at risk. And so I just think that there are fewer vulnerable people in crypto. So it's a really excellent opportunity to learn more about how we can coordinate and execute decisions.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, yeah, this whole thing that actually governance is probably what crypto is all about, like this social coordination. And I guess there's very many levels to it. And I think this kind of high level of the network coordination of upgrades and parameters is the one that is kind of there now already, right? So, but it will definitely, like, there will be some insights from this to other structures that you might have, governance structures that you might be enabled through blockchain. So I'm glad you're working on this, and I think, yeah, there's not enough people doing it, and I think you're really in the weeds there and like doing a lot of work, which we're going to talk about in a second. And yeah,
I'm glad to be working on it. It's a challenging experience that I'm learning from, and I think that there's an opportunity for us to learn in many different ways, at many different layers and perspectives.
Yeah, so maybe let's go through what you already did basically for in Cosmos Hub governance. I think the one thing that probably stands out most is the upgrade to Cosmos Hub 3 and the coordination around that. So I'm gonna explain quickly kind of what happened or how that whole process works, and then maybe you can kind of tell us a bit more about how you experienced it and how it went down. So basically, Cosmos Hub, for those that don't know, the governance process is based on on-chain governance, so it's basically coin voting. And the upgrades don't happen in an automated fashion, but it's more or less like the next software version for a new upgrade gets proposed as a governance proposal, and then the whole validator and delegate community vote on these proposals, and the exact software version that's going to be implemented as upgrade. And then you also have to coordinate the exact block height at which the upgrade is going to happen. So there's a lot of factors that kind of play in that you need to consider, for example, like block times, and then how does the block time translate into like the real world. So in the process of this all, right, it was very underspecified, let's say, how these upgrades work, and it kind of evolved over time in Cosmos Hub. So in the beginning it was more Genesis file, like Tendermint coming up with it, and then it got more and more decentralized with all these validators getting involved. And I think still you need someone to kind of champion this upgrade, and I think you kind of gladly took on this role for the Cosmos Hub 3. So maybe you want to talk a bit about how did you go about kind of organizing this, getting everyone coordinated on board and kind of communicating out that's how this proposal is going down, and that everyone is kind of on the same page.
Yeah. So just to be clear, the functionality of the Cosmos Hub governance mechanism works. It's as just purely a signaling mechanism. So that's what you had alluded to earlier when you were saying. I think. So it means that you can only submit a text-based proposal that acts as a signaling mechanism. So nothing's automatic within it. It doesn't actually enact anything. It's still a very human process. So I'm referencing something here because I actually don't really remember all of the things that I did, but it's a very human process. There's writing a proposal that makes. I actually, can you ask your question again? I wonder if we can ground me here a bit.
I mean, mostly, exactly. Mostly, I'm wondering about how did you go about like all this coordination process? Did you like the communication behind it? You got everyone involved? Kind of maybe just talk about how you set this up, how you figured things out, and maybe kind of go a bit into what were the pain points that you experienced.
To be honest, I don't really remember very well. I guess I just saw this as a potential problem initially. I saw that All in Bits, like the Tendermint team, they had prepared code that needed to be upgraded. And I realized at the time that from a technical side, All in Bits was sort of the de facto decision maker. And I know that they didn't want to be, but they were the most responsible, and there wasn't really a process in place for anyone else to take responsibility. So the first natural thing that came to mind to me and to others was that the governance mechanism should be used to take responsibility for that. And so I thought about what that may look like. And so I started off by writing some draft proposals, and I spoke with people from the Tendermint team because I thought they would be major stakeholders in that. I spoke to Jesse Irwin, and I spoke to Zaki, I spoke to Jack and Bez, and just to understand a bit about what their needs were and how they saw things. And I realized that a lot of the things that I had written kind of were trying to imitate like legislative type writing. And I realized that didn't maybe practically suit what we were doing, because there was no, these governance proposals weren't really laws, and no one had ever really used them. People had used them, but not really very well for upgrades. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to create proposals that reflected the spirit of what it was we were doing, which was we were just trying to agree together that what we were going to do and how we were going to do it, without saying, if this proposal passes, everybody must behave this way. So that was an iterative process, kind of figuring out what the spirit of what it was we were doing was and how to best articulate that. So that was that difficult. I guess there were some pain points there, figuring out what that looks like. I'm relatively, I'm not highly technical. The things that I know, I've just learned in recent time. So understanding, bridging the human side with the technical side was a challenge for me.
Okay, yeah, for sure. It sounds like it was very a grassroots approach to it, and I think that's probably one of the only ways you can actually do it, trial and error and actually doing it. Because if you theorize about it, there will be something that's different in practice than in theory. And I mean, I also followed along the whole process, right? We had actually multiple different proposals then, and then the timing didn't work out, and some things got better and better. And now I think in the end, what came out of it was actually this nice kind of proposal format, right, that you probably can reuse. And I guess everyone kind of trained there how to approach these situations better. And I think that's also what your next initiative probably is about, that we're going to talk about on this podcast. I think we should move towards. So that is this formation of this governance working group. So I think, right, you kind of realized All in Bits was the de facto technical force, and also the governance in the end, deciding on the software upgrades. And now, as the Cosmos Hub getting more and more decentralized, there's some needs to kind of also decentralize the decision making, and to make it not so hard for everyone, I guess, as what you experienced. The idea behind the working group, or at least how I understand it, is to make these kind of proposals or this engaging easier for other people. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm trying to essentially trailblaze. I'm trying to make something that's typically very hard and maybe something that people don't want to do a lot easier to do, and ideally in a way that makes it easier for high quality participation and at a grassroots level. I think one of the things that I realized is that in doing a lot of the work and not talking a lot about the challenges of the work, is that it actually looks I think it may look easy. It's not. So that's what I think the value here is of some of this work that I'm proposing to do. But I realize that might not be obvious to everybody.
Yeah, sure. It is quite interesting that it is such a controversial topic. I guess it is also due to the fact that this is the first community pool funded proposal. It's like explicitly has this price attached to it, and people like distributed global teams trying to figure out what is like an appropriate amount to spend on what. And
it's a price discovery.
So
I think it's a sort of price discovery because we don't know it's hard to decide what work is worth.
Yeah, maybe we'll get to that in a second, but maybe let's also just talk about how this governance working group is supposed to be funded. So basically, the Cosmos Hub, the upgrade through Cosmos Hub 3 had this feature that you can spend funds from the community pool, which is basically an address on the Cosmos Hub that accrues fees from transactions happening on the hub and block rewards. So there's I think a 2% fee that gets automatically redistributed to this pool, and then it kind of just sits there and waits and it goes up. And then the idea is, okay, this funding should be kind of used to further develop or build like public goods for the Cosmos. That kind of strengthen the Cosmos Hub, and maybe that otherwise wouldn't get funding. So that's obviously a very or maybe.
And this is assumed. We actually were really just kind of inherited this functionality. We were just by our technocrats, right? But like it didn't come with a manual. It's just like how to use it. You know, it just says that it comes with, we know how to send it. Like we know how to send a command to send a proposal that will trigger transferring the funds, but we don't know. Like we assume with the name community pool, it's for community goods, and that's kind of what I'm proceeding with that assumption. But like we decide what we give it meaning, I think, as a community. And that's part of what I'm trying, like a little bit of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, for sure. I guess there's been a lot of different conceptions about what this pool is supposed to be. And I think now that you can actually propose stuff to it, these different opinions clash with each other. And now you have to figure out what actually is feasible. But I think we're on a good path. Maybe let's quickly kind of go over the details of the proposal right now. So basically what you're requesting is 5,250 Atom for this funding or for creating this working group and creating some deliverables that we'll cover in a second. But so just for the listeners to understand, this is basically right now around $25,000. We have this proposal. So in Cosmos Hub, these tax proposals are in voting period for 2 weeks. Basically right now already like 3/4 of all the stake has voted on this proposal, and it's overwhelmingly yes. There's like 92% yes votes, 4.4 abstain, and 4% no votes, and there's only like 2 days of voting left. So it's more or less likely that this will pass, although we're definitely like encouraging everyone that has a stake to still vote themselves. So Cosmos Hub, everyone that first inherits the vote of the validators, but if you don't agree, you can send your own transaction and vote by yourself. So please do if you.
Just want to jump in. Even if you do agree, I think you should still vote. There are a number of reasons for that. One of them is that you may be delegating to more than one validator, which I think is really like, as an aside, I think it's good that people delegate to more than one validator. And so in this case, there may be competing decisions or different decisions between the validators you delegate to. The other thing is that your validator may change their vote at any time, and that may change your vote. That will change your vote as well, unless you've voted. And then the third thing is that I think it's a way to show that you're an active participant. It's kind of indisputable evidence that you as a delegator you're not a passive voter. You're participating. So I think that if you have an idea of the way that you'd like to vote, you should vote. And I'm always tweeting about that. You can use Looney, you can use Cosmos Station for if you don't have a ledger. But if you do have a ledger, there are many options. Chorus One has a tool, Hubble has a tool, Looney has a tool. So you should try to vote if you've been following.
Yeah, thanks again. So definitely we're gonna put this also in the show notes if someone gets some insight and does still want to vote. You have to hurry up because when this episode airs, probably it's like only one day left. Okay, so maybe let's get into more details that people also understand what they're voting on here. So basically, we already mentioned you want to create this governance working group, and then there's a few other deliverables, let's say. You want to quickly just go over them, what exactly will this will entail, and like what the outcome will be, and then maybe we can finish up by like figuring out what you expect to come out of that, or what's your goal. Yeah,
sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with the easiest ones, and that's so with on December 11th, Cosmos Hub 3 launched, and that includes new functionality. So governance proposals are not just like text-based signals. They actually have the ability to enact changes, and one of the changes is parameter changes. So that means you can change parameters without having to like with a governance proposal, without having to fork the software, like run a new version of the software. So we don't need Cosmos Hub 4 to launch in order to change let's say the rate at which the community fund is funded. So right now it's 2%, a 2% tax on all staking rewards. And we could make that 4% to make, if we think that this amount isn't sustainable, for example. Well, we don't need to write new software and launch the Cosmos Hub 4 to make that happen. We could just make a governance proposal, and then within 14 days, if it's approved, we can change that parameter, and now there'll be more funding for the community pool. There's a lot of power that comes with that. And so helping people to understand like what the implications are of like what can be changed, all of the things that can be changed, and what the implications of changing them are. That's one of the deliverables I've proposed here in this proposal, and so like a form of education to understand how like what's important about changing, what to consider when changing those with a proposal, or when assessing a proposal that someone else has made to change those things. Like what should you be paying attention to? Another deliverable is around the functionality for spending from the community pool. And that's similar in that the deliverable that I'm proposing to create is a resource to understand everything that's involved in creating a community spend proposal and assessing a community spend a proposal. And my hope is that people will be able to it's a difficult process to create one of these proposals, and I want to lower that barrier so that people are able to access the community pool that wouldn't ordinarily access it because of the overhead involved in creating a high quality proposal. I also want people to be able to assess other people's proposals well, so that and I'm hoping ultimately that there will be a lot of grassroots engagement. And so that leads me to what the governance working group as a deliverable. That's kind of that's taking shape. I envisioned it as originally I envisioned that as a group chat that would, but that's since evolved to being. I've got a lot of good feedback, and one of them is that most of the discussions ideally will take place on the Cosmos forum. That's run by All in Bits, so it's centralized. We're depending on the company All in Bits to preserve our conversations until there's a better option. And there's a Telegram group for Fluid Chat, but there's also a Discord group now that somebody has created. And I'm not particular about where we have our fluid chats. Like, I'm willing to jump into different groups to have different chats. But ideally, what I'd like is a list of people who are interested in governance, so that there's not a central point of failure. So if you need to kind of form a new Telegram group, you don't need to go through me to do that. What I'm trying to do is I'm not trying to lead this group. What I'm trying to do is I'm championing it. Like I'm trying to get it started, but I'm hopeful that the community will be the ones that develop it. I'm having difficulty explaining it because like I said, it's taking shape. But the idea here is that I've got a list of things that people have talked about. I'm trying to track across multi-channel to see what's important to people about different topics in governance, and connecting those people together so that if that's something that's important to them and they want to work on it, that they can do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, really interesting. I think I'm part of this already, like the spreadsheet, and obviously the group is there. But as you said, it requires people to actually engage, and I'm hoping that this will also start to happen now. I feel even just the proposal itself already started more engagement. So hopefully there is more to come. I think you didn't mention right now this charter. Do you want to like maybe talk a bit about that? Is that something you are going to want to write, or is it also something that the working group ideally together comes up with, or is it related to these things you're tracking that people want to talk about?
Yeah, so I created a charter because I thought that it might be important to kind of refer back to in the spirit of what it is that we're trying to do as a working group dedicated to governance. But this is just my idea. So nobody has suggested any changes. I tried to make it as simple and straightforward as possible, but like I'm hoping that this will evolve. So I've suggested this charter at the beginning of January. I've alerted people to it, but I haven't. This is something that I'm hoping to talk about we're having a call tomorrow for the governance working group, and I'm hoping we'll have the chance to chat a little bit about that as well, like what we see, the kind of mission, vision, and values of what it is that we're doing as a group. So I started with what I thought should be the mission, vision, and values, but I'm hoping that this will evolve, that people will add color to it, or maybe we can radically change it if need be. But ultimately, what I'm hopeful for is I'm hopeful to have this separate group of people who are connected and competent in the way that Cosmos governance is done and may be done in the future, and that kind of starts to spread into the broader Cosmos community.
Yeah, that's very good idea, I think, and then I really feel like these steps make a lot of sense to me. So obviously, we are also very supportive of this proposal and the working group itself, because, yeah, as you said, there's probably this risk factor. I think in the beginning you mentioned there's maybe a weakness in Cosmos, although I would say, at least technically, we have this group, but there's so much social side to it that we still need to figure out. So, but we're still like, we're getting there. I don't know if many other crypto communities don't seem to be much further. I think to some extent, many kept it kind of centralized around the actual development team, and then there's less this public discussion. Maybe that's making things more efficient, but I feel the way we're approaching it now could lay a foundation for a very successful governance process. And I'm very glad to see this proposal probably pass. But maybe to kind of slowly wrap this up, we can talk a bit about about the discussion around the proposal. So what's the interesting thing here? So I guess there were some negative voices around it and like against it. I think you did a good job also like trying to highlight that these different positions and answering everyone. What would be I guess this may be also part of your best practice talk, but what's like your recommendation for someone doing a proposal? Is there something that you wish you wouldn't have done the way you did, or?
Yeah, there were some like great things that came out of it. One of them is that State Capital brought this up. They said that Figment Networks shouldn't have voted for their own proposal, and I agreed. And we changed that to abstain as soon as I saw that. I said, well, like we should change that, and I'm hoping that will carry on into the future. I think it's like a really great. Okay, so I haven't like Let's see if I can like get good words for this. So I think this is like an awesome suggestion because, well, first of all, we're like direct beneficiaries of this proposal. So we shouldn't vote for our own proposal because why
conflict of interest?
It's a bit of a conflict of interest, yeah. And some may argue about that. Some may say like, well, you know, we're community members as well, and we should show our vote and that sort of thing. But I actually don't think so. I think abstaining is really important because it lets us step outside of the decision-making process to allow the community to do that. And here's why. Like I can't like boil it down very well to like, you know, the philosophical like logic of it, but I can give an example, and that's like, what if like a big exchange starts to accumulate like a lot of power, a lot of voting power, and then they make a proposal that they're going to send themselves all of the funds, right? Or even a chunk of the funds. If they have a strong amount of voting power, let's say they have 51% of the voting power, they can pass the proposal technically. But there's still enough of the network that can veto the proposal. And so I think that if we establish a culture in which people, we know that proposers never vote for their own proposal, and if they do, the rest of the hub just vetoes automatically, then we're set up like culturally, we're culturally coordinated to not have somebody just kind of force their proposal through, because there might be elements, like I envision like there may be elements of the proposal that people kind of like, and it might be controversial. Some people might like it, some people might not like it. But one thing that we all agree upon is that you shouldn't be voting for your own proposal. So if like some newcomer comes with a large percentage of the voting power and decides to vote for their own proposal, like we don't need to bicker amongst ourselves. We just know we should veto because these guys voted for their own proposal. This is just kind of a thing that I think that might be valuable. I don't know whether this will kind of take in the voting culture, but I'd like to see that. Like,
yeah, it brings up another interesting point that some people I think have also made, and that maybe is the direction of this, or it kind of shows the direction this whole community fund is going. That basically, right, your Figment is one of the big validators in the Cosmos Hub, and now the first proposal comes from these big validators. Do you think it will be largely proposals from these bigger companies or stake providers that will get the funding from this pool, or do you think it will kind of be this circle behind them, or how do you think we can get like smaller people involved that they also?
Well, that's the work that I want to do. The work that I want to do is to enable, like, to lower the overhead to create these proposals, to make it easier for people to submit high quality proposals, regardless of whether you have the resources to submit a proposal or not. And as for predictions, it's hard for me to really say. I know, like, okay, so my prediction is that if we leave things as they are, smaller entities will like probably be dissuaded from participating, because it's hard to get a proposal passed, and it's hard to satisfy such widespread scrutiny. So the overhead there is very high. So I think that may dissuade smaller entities. I could see, like, let's say people from the All in Bits team. They're like having the credibility of being the primary, like the principal developers for the Cosmos Hub. That may, dissuade some of that scrutiny. So it may be a lower barrier to entry for people like insiders, like Cosmos insiders, to be able to have successful proposals. So, like, in terms of predictions, that's maybe what I would predict if we left things as is. But my hope is that we work together, like, as a group, like, to learn from some of the work that I've done and to improve upon that as well, so that people can get paid for their work. so that if they think that they can contribute something valuable, they can contribute it and get paid and get paid for it. One of the things that somebody had suggested was, well, like, and it's very, very valid. Why is this one person who's trying to start this governance working group getting paid and nobody else is getting paid? Is that something that you want to check?
I mean, yeah, I've heard that too, but I don't even think. I mean,
does that have?
It takes someone to really lead this and really do the groundwork and do the documents and all these kind of organizational things. And I think while it's probably much easier for someone just to join the calls if the other person organizes it, I think it's okay if at the beginning that one guy gets paid. Maybe in the future there might be some other structure where your contributions to the governance group also get some payment. I think hopefully we'll come up with some more scalable funding methods, because the problem I see is right now, it's way too much overhead involved, and I guess it's also the community pool is not that big, right? So
it takes time for the funds to accrue, and it all depends on like kind of what work's being done and how the hub values it. But the way that my prediction is that the hub will value output. So there have been a lot of discussions about like equity, like fairness, and like who deserves to be paid and how much do they deserve to be paid. And like, while I admire where these conversations like come from, I see them as maybe being, it may not be reflected in the decisions that the hub makes collectively, because like from what I can see, like for what I think may happen is that people will submit a proposal that says, this is what I will deliver. And the hub will say, is it worth it to us or not? So they may not say like, how hard is it? They may not be thinking like, how hard is it for this person? And do they deserve to get this money? Like, that's not the kind of thing that a lot of voters may be thinking about. They may just be thinking, what's in it for the hub as a common good? Like, are we going to get a thing? Yeah. Are we going to get a thing at the end of this that's worth these atoms? And that's kind of how I think what will drive the decisions. And so what I think is that we need to have things in place so that people are able to show the hub what it is that they plan to do and how valuable it is, and to assure them that it'll get done. And for that process to be as easy as possible for people so that they can participate. And if participating in the governance working group is something that the hub values and was willing to pay people to do, and people are willing to do work that the hub values, I think that people can get paid for it. I think it's just that we need to set things up to make that possible.
Yeah, I think that those are very good closing words, and I'm really excited about this whole initiative and seeing things taking shape. And I think wish you best of luck this proposal that is passed, and then we'll hopefully see some people hearing this join the working group. And maybe to finish, do you want to share a bit like where people can learn more?
Sure. Yeah. So for the most part, we're trying to operate out of the forum. And that you can just head to forum.cosmos.network. And what I do is I'm putting GWG as a like tag in square brackets in front of the posts that I post in the governance section of that, just so that so that it kind of indicates that it's coming from work that we're doing as a group. And it's too late to join the we're going to do a call tomorrow, but we're going to do a month-end call every month. There's the Telegram group for fluid chat. There's also, you can follow on Twitter as well. And then also Discord. We're trying out Discord as well. Someone created a Discord server, so we'll see if that's a good place to chat. But yeah, if it really we're trying to get diverse membership. So we want wallet developers, we want like ecosystem partners, like even if you're not in the Cosmos Hub, let's say you're like working on Kava or you're working on some other Cosmos zone. We're looking for protocol developers, of course, validators. We have lots of validators, but it would be really nice to identify new stakeholders. We'd like to be multilingual, and we'd like to have even non-validator stakeholders as well. So it would be good to kind of get many perspectives about how to do governance well on the Cosmos Hub.
Yes, for sure. I will put links to all of these things into the show notes. So just check those out to our listeners. And thanks to you so much, Gavin, for coming on. And good luck with the governance working group. I'm excited.
Thanks. It was really nice to chat. I hope I probably left anybody listening wanting. So, I'm happy to do a call or chat if you have further questions.
Thank you for listening to the Chorus One podcast. Visit chorus.one for more information about our work. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to stay tuned on new episodes airing every Monday.